dumped using therapy language, you know you have. They didn't say, "I don't want to be with you anymore." They said, "I need to prioritize my healing journey right now." They didn't say, "I don't feel like dealing with this." They said, "I'm setting a boundary around my emotional capacity." They didn't say, "You annoy me." They said, "Your energy doesn't align with my vibration." And you just stood there, confused, hurt. Because how do you argue with someone's healing? How do you be mad at someone's boundaries? How do you say that's bullshit when they're using all the right words? Here's what nobody's saying out loud. Therapy language has become the most sophisticated way to be an asshole in human history. We're all walking around speaking fluent psychology while using it to justify ghosting, manipulation, cruelty, and abandonment. We learned the language of healing and turned it into a weapon. We learned the vocabulary of growth and used it to stop growing entirely. And the people who sound the most emotionally intelligent, they're often the most emotionally unavailable. This is how therapy speak ruined everything. And you know I'm right. Let's just say it. You can feel the difference. When someone actually needs space versus when someone's just done with you. When someone's actually triggered versus when someone's just uncomfortable. Your body knows, your gut knows, but the words make you doubt yourself because they sound so right, so evolved, so self-aware. "I'm protecting my peace" sounds better than "I'm selfish." "That's triggering" sounds better than "I don't like hearing different opinions." "I'm setting boundaries" sounds better than "I want all the benefits of a relationship with none of the responsibilities." And that's exactly the point. Therapy language became armor, a way to be untouchable, uncriticizable, above reproach. You can't call someone out for being flaky when they're honoring their energy. You can't ask for basic reciprocity when they're not responsible for your feelings. You can't expect them to show up when they're choosing themselves. You can't even be hurt without being told you're not taking accountability for your reactions. It's genius, really. They get to do whatever they want. And if you have a problem with it, you're the one who needs to work on yourself. You're too needy, too sensitive, too demanding, too much. You're not respecting their boundaries. You're not holding space for their journey. You're not vibrating at their frequency. Meanwhile, these words, these actual clinical important words, are becoming meaningless. When everything is triggering, nothing is. When everyone is toxic, no one is. When every discomfort is trauma, real trauma gets erased. Triggered used to mean a genuine trauma response that sends you into fight or flight. Now it means anything that makes me slightly uncomfortable. Gaslighting used to mean systematic psychological manipulation designed to make you doubt your reality. Now it means someone disagreed with my version of events. Trauma used to mean deeply distressing experiences with lasting psychological impact. Now it means something bad happened once. And while we're casually throwing around these terms, people with actual trauma, actual triggers, actual gaslighting experiences get dismissed because the words don't mean anything anymore. This didn't happen in therapy. It happened on the internet, where nuance goes to die, where everything is black and white, where you're either healing or you're toxic, where you're either setting boundaries or you're a doormat. And now it's everywhere, in your relationships, in your friendships, at work, at family dinner. Everyone's armed with psychology terms, and no one's actually doing psychology. Everyone's diagnosing and no one's actually healing. Everyone's setting boundaries and no one's actually connecting. Because here's what actually happened. We learned the language of connection and used it to justify disconnection. We learned the vocabulary of vulnerability and used it to build walls. We learned the tools of intimacy and weaponized them against intimacy itself. Okay, let's talk about boundaries, because this word has been destroyed. A boundary is supposed to be what you will tolerate, what you need, where your line is. It's about you managing your life. But now boundary means what you have to do to make me comfortable. My boundary is you can't talk to your ex. That's not a boundary. That's control. My boundary is you have to text me good night. That's not a boundary. That's a demand. My boundary is you can't be friends with people I don't like. That's not a boundary. That's isolation. My boundary is you need to agree with my politics. That's not a boundary. That's authoritarianism with a therapy vocabulary. Here's the test that ends this confusion. If your boundary requires someone else to change their behavior, it's not a boundary. It's a request, or a demand, or an ultimatum. Real boundary. I don't drink, so I won't go to bars. Fake boundary. You can't go to bars because it makes me uncomfortable. Real boundary. I won't stay in conversations where I'm being yelled at. Fake boundary. You're not allowed to raise your voice ever. Real boundary. I need an hour of alone time when I get home from work. Fake boundary. You can't talk to me until I'm ready. See what happened there? Real boundaries are about managing yourself. Fake boundaries are about controlling other people. And the worst part, once someone calls something a boundary, you're supposed to just accept it. Questioning it makes you toxic. Wrong. You absolutely can question someone's boundary if the boundary is actually just them being controlling, unreasonable, or abusive. Those aren't boundaries, those are red flags, wearing a therapy costume. And they're everywhere now. People ending friendships because someone violated their boundary by asking how they're doing. People ghosting partners because they don't owe anyone closure. People abandoning responsibilities because things don't serve them. At some point, we have to say it. If everything is a boundary violation, you don't have boundaries. You have walls, and walls don't protect you, they imprison you. You can't have a relationship with someone who has a boundary around everything. At that point, you don't have a partner. You have a roommate who occasionally texts you. So ask yourself, are my boundaries protecting me from harm, or are they protecting me from the basic requirements of human connection? Because relationships require flexibility, they require effort, they require showing up even when you're tired, they require discomfort sometimes, and if your boundaries make all of that impossible, you're not ready for a relationship. And that's fine, just call it what it is. Don't blame everyone else for not respecting your boundaries when your boundaries make intimacy impossible. Everyone's a narcissist now. Your ex, your mother, your boss, that friend who forgot your birthday. Actual narcissistic personality disorder affects about 1% of the population. But according to the internet, it's basically everyone. People diagnose based on TikToks and checklists and call it clinical insight. And it lets people avoid accountability because if someone's a narcissist, you don't have to look at your part. If someone's toxic, you don't have to have hard conversations. If someone's manipulative, you don't have to consider they might just be human. We've lost nuance. We've lost the ability to say someone hurt me without turning them into a villain. Now everything needs a label. Everything needs a diagnosis. Congrats, you're human. What makes something a disorder isn't the symptom. It's the severity, the persistence, the impairment to functioning. But nobody talks about that part. And then these labels become identities, which means people never actually get help. And now we arrive at the most bastardized phrase of all, self-care. Self-care was meant to prevent burnout, to help people survive. Now it's permission to disappear without accountability. Self-care has become a shield against responsibility. We've created a culture where everyone's protecting their energy and no one's giving any. Relationships are supposed to be hard sometimes. Love requires effort. Caring means discomfort. You can't have intimacy while avoiding vulnerability. Real self-care helps you show up. Fake self-care helps you disappear. And here's the darkest irony. We're more aware of mental health than ever. And we have less empathy than ever. Technically correct doesn't mean emotionally healthy. We've traded compassion for correctness, connection for boundaries, love for self-protection. The goal of healing isn't to avoid discomfort. It's to be able to tolerate it when it matters. What we need is balance. Care for yourself and care for others. Set boundaries and show flexibility. Protect your peace and show up. Therapy language is useful, but we've turned it into a weapon. If your growth is making you more isolated, more rigid, more alone, you're not growing. You're building walls and calling them boundaries. You can be right, or you can be connected. Because therapy speak can explain everything you're doing, but it can't explain why you're doing it alone. maybe it's time to put down the vocabulary and pick up the phone. The people who love you don't need the right words, they just need you to show up.